Hello Internet, Alex from Barefaced here, and I am going to attempt to try and explain our range of bass cabs. And the place to start with that, I realised, was to start with the speakers, because with our guitar cabs we have standard speakers we fit in them, the Vintage 30 or the G10 Vintage, but we also have lots of choices of different Celestion speakers, or you can have them unloaded. So in the case of guitar cabs you can be quite flexible about the speakers because they're not operating at such low frequencies. You've got different tonal goals. There's a very different thing going on. Now in the world of bass cabs, as with the world of hi-fi speakers and PA speakers and studio monitors, the speaker and the cabinet have to be designed in unison. They're a complex system, and at low frequencies the interaction is really critical to getting great sound, great performance. So rather than giving you a lot of choice of different drivers, we have two drivers that we developed in conjunction with Eminence some years ago. We put a lot of work, a lot of time into them, and came up with, well, what I believe are, without a doubt, the best bass guitar, or double bass, but best bass instrument speakers that have probably ever existed, certainly on the market today, and I don't think anything in the past has been better than what we have now. So, we have a 12, and we have a 10. Do not think that this sounds like a 12 and this sounds like a 10, because they don't. It doesn't work like that. It's rubbish based on anecdotal evidence, and well, there's another video for that. But let me show you them from the side. Look, so here's our 10 CR. This is the 12XN. You can instantly see there is more different to them than just the cone diameter. So I'm going to explain how they actually differ. The common feature of both these speakers is they're designed to have extended frequency response. So they go low, they go high, and everything's there across the frequency response. Now the 10 does not have flat frequency response. It has some humps and dips, and it gives it a nice colour. The 12 is as near as damn it flat across its working bandwidth, which is wide. It runs low. How low it goes is dependent on the cab it's in, but you're not going to need to go lower with bass guitar than either of these speakers can go when in the correct cab for your needs. And in terms of how high they go, the cone on this one runs to about 4 kilohertz, but the central dome dust cap runs to about 10 kilohertz at lower output, lower sensitivity, and on this one, the cone on this one runs to about 6 kilohertz, and the central dust cap takes you to 10, 12 kilohertz, something like that. But essentially they go as high as can be expected from a speaker of that diameter that can handle this sort of power. Well, for the amount of power it can handle, they go higher than anyone would expect, so that's one of the things that's special about them. They've got wide dispersion, so that comes from how we have designed the cones themselves, the dust caps and things like that, the moving parts within it. So what's going on with the voice coil has an effect on the dispersion. So it's to do with things like relative masses and where mass is located and where things are energized. So you've got wide dispersion, so that's good polar response. So that is critical. And then they start to differ. So this has much more magnet on it, although the magnet isn't bigger physically. This has a neodymium magnet, whilst this has a ceramic magnet. The neodymium magnets are about 10 times as strong weight for weight, so this has a lot more motor force behind it, which gives it very, very good, shockingly good transient response. It is absolutely precise. It just slams, it starts, stops with real honesty, which some people like me love, and some people just find a bit too much. It's just a bit too on it, it's a bit too tight, but conversely some people might find it less tight because it goes so deep. So it's a complicated thing. Basically, it's quick. You don't need to have a 10-inch driver for it to go quick. This goes very quick because you've got a lot of motor force behind it. This is not as quick. It's quick enough, but it has a certain That's a subtle softness to it and warmth, but also some would say more tightness sometimes because of how it rolls off in the lows, and that's a cabinet design feature. So they will both do that big fat, warm, round, low end thing, but they will also do that fast punchy thing depending on how you choose to use them. Dynamic response, so that's, you know, how they respond to loud notes versus quiet notes. They're both very dynamic speakers. They've got a lot of thermal power handling, so that helps the dynamic response. Motor vents in the middle to keep them cool, big voice coils and motor vents on this, bigger voice coil on this because it handles more power. So like for like, just so you know, two of these have similar output to one of these. I can't give you a definitive answer on that because if you want a really clean sound, then one of these has more output than two of these. However, if you're into dirtier, growlier, nastier sounds, then two of these has more output than one of these. But basically, they're in the same sort of ballpark. When you push this one harder and harder and harder, it just keeps staying the same, tonally. It gets louder, your bass gets louder, but nothing actually changes in the sound until you absolutely reach its limit, but you're talking 800 watts or something to get to there. So that doesn't change in tone as it gets louder. This, however, as you push it harder, it gets a bit growly. It gets growly, it gets more characterful, and then eventually it starts to get really dirty and roary now, and it gets a bit dark. When you really push it hard, it gets darker. It doesn't, normally when you push speakers too hard, they start sounding thin. This never sounds thin. It stays sounding fat, however hard you push it. But it gets growlier and dirty and angrier, and that's why with this speaker, the 12, we'll rate it with amps up to 600 watts per 12 in the super cabs, or 800 watts per 12 in the big cabs. Whilst this, we'll say 250 watts if you're putting any sort per 10, if you're putting any sort of tone into it. But if you're putting clean sounds in and you're wanting clean sounds out, then we're happy with you putting up to 500 watts in roughly per speaker. We don't continue that with as the cabs get bigger, so we'd say 500 watts into a 110, 800 watts into a 210, and then I'd say 1000 watts or so into a 410, because your ear gets less good at telling when it's the speaker getting upset by what you're doing to it, as opposed to the speaker handling the power and doing good things with it. In terms of sensitivity, they're both very efficient speakers. This speaker is more efficient than this speaker. However, it's a bigger speaker, so you'd expect that. So for a 10-inch speaker, this is very, very sensitive. For a 12-inch speaker, this is pretty damn sensitive, but this one has the slight edge. So our 2x10 is a bit more sensitive. So the 210S is a bit more sensitive than, say, the super compact with one of those, which is the cabs the same sizes. Power handling. This has enormous power handling. This one has high power handling, but it's not as enormous as that. Output, we've just covered that. I mean, one of these can put out about as much as a lot of 410s or 212s. One of these can put out as much as a great 12 or a 210 or a 1x15. So, you know, it's potent. They really are very potent. You can be comparing to other cabs. You can often go down to half the size as long as you've got enough amp power. And then sound-wise, the goal with this one is accuracy, total accuracy, as much as is possible within the limitations of physics and engineering. What's this one? It sounds warmer, it sounds fatter, it has colour. There's a lot of basses it sounds great with. It just does good things to sound, if that's what you want done to your sound. Now, people will say to me, what genre are these for? And I will say to you, there isn't a genre. Each of them works with different amps and different basses and different bassists in different ways. So I would not be surprised to see bassists, you know, a bassist in one band being replaced by bassist in that same band, and one of them's using 12XN cabs and one of them's using 10CR cabs, and they're both working great in that context for that player. So the answer to which is right for you is either you can watch our videos and listen to demos and read more stuff about it, and you might find your way to it, or you can just email us and I'll ask you some questions and we'll work it out. But it's very rare for me to get it wrong, so I'm good at sussing out what you need tonally. So that's the speakers, 12XN, so that can be found in our Big Baby 3, Big Twin 3, Super Mini T, Super Compact T, Super Twin T. I think that's all the models that's in now. Oh, the Super Third and Super Third T, so that's another 112. And then this one can be found, this is a bit more straightforward. 110, 210S, because the 210 is switchable, 410, 610, 810, and there's T versions of all of those. So they've all got optional tweeters that you can have to extend the treble response and give you more brightness. I could go into some technical stuff about why these sound different, if you care, but it doesn't really matter. What actually matters is how they sound and what they do in context. In reality, this has got, well, quickly explain. This is a cast frame and a neo magnet. This is a pressed steel frame and a ceramic magnet. They've both got light voice coils for their voice coil size, which helps with the polar response and the efficiency. This one's got a lighter cone that's less heavily damped. This has got a stiffer, heavier cone that's more damped. They both use the surrounding clever ways to help with the reducing the coloration. 12XN was for sort of extended range or extreme output, and then neodymium was also my daughter and my wife's first initials, and 10CR ceramic and retro, but then we realised it wasn't really that retro compared to most bass cabs and could do a lot of stuff, so retro is selling it short. But that's also my late father's initials, so yeah, you got to give things names or numbers or whatever, so they might have some meaning under there. So there we go, that's the 12XN 10CR comparison, me explaining them. There are demo videos where you can listen to them and lots more writings elsewhere. But ask me questions if you are puzzled, tell me what you want to know more about, and I will then do another video trying to explain the ranges of cabs and what they do within there. I hope this is helpful. A man on a whiteboard. It's kind of helpful for me. So, yeah. I shall see you next time. I've been Alex from Barefaced. These are speakers.